The written history of Wesselman Woods may begin with early colonizers to the area. However, we acknowledge that Indigenous peoples and nations were the original stewards of the forests, waterways, and land in southern Indiana. By the 1960s and 70s, the young women of the Junior League of Evansville recognized the importance of the land that would become Wesselman Woods. They developed fundraisers, petitions, and started community engagement projects to protect this land. Thanks to their dedication, Evansville saw the establishment of this land as Wesselman Woods Nature Preserve. In 1971, the construction of Wesselman Park Nature Center was completed, and in 1972, Wesselman Nature Society was established to manage the preserve. At this time, the forest was hundreds of years old, and the managing system of Wesselman Woods was in its infancy. We have invited former staff, board members, and volunteers to reminisce on the past and reflect on this remarkable place.
I used to come over here when there was just the trails made by the animals, and there was nothing here. We'd ride our bikes in here, and that was early, before they ever made a nature center out of it.
My earliest memory of Wesselman Woods was actually 1976 when I started working there during Mayor Lloyd's administration. I always recall it as like Wesselman Park Nature Center, but John's is a little different.
Okay, my earliest memory was playing Army men and Cowboys and Indians with George H. Stockwell III, who I went to school with, and we played in his family's property, which was known as Stockwell Woods. So I was in those woods as a little boy in the early 60s with George, one of the grandsons of the original owners at that time.
And it must have been 3 or 4 years after the place opened. Going into the building and nothing there but the office, and the lobby was just nothing. It was just a plain old empty room.
Okay, I started at Wesselman Woods in the fall of 1984. I had moved here from Indiana University, Bloomington, and come down to Evansville, and then I started pretty much right away.
Well, I was a volunteer and board member, which also included a couple of terms of officers back in the 1980s, and just love this place.
I remember walking in and meeting Lucille Pett, who was fantastic, and she was in her green polyester leisure suit, and proceeded to tell me that was basically going to be my uniform as well, which was not particularly welcome news. But I soon found out it really didn't matter what I wore to Wesselman Nature Center to work.
My earliest memory was when I was inducted as a board member and corralled into a room with all these movers and shakers in Evansville. Peggy Short was there, Leanne Bruner was there, Bill Bussing was there, and many other people who you'll remember from the past perhaps. And everybody was vying for positions on the different subcommittees, and nobody wanted to be on finance committee. Everybody was shunning it and running away. And being new, that was the committee I got on. It was just kind of funny how nobody really wanted to be in charge of the finances of this organization back then.
Oh my, everything's changed. The garage used to be where your offices are now.
Yes, sir.
And we had a bird room next to that, and we had 2 great big corn cribs where we kept some of the big birds. And we had a nice great big sign here that explained what the trails look like.
Oh my gosh, well, so many good changes. I mean, we felt like we had a lot going on because we started the maple sugaring program and really the membership program. We had Lease a Piece of the Park, all of those kind of fundraising things. But since then, the Nature Center has been able to expand, and particularly educational programs. We had educational programs, but they certainly weren't the quality that you have today, and how wetlands was not involved and the canoeing program was not there. But I really think the biggest change happened when we did the fund drive, and the city came in and they really shored up the building, spent a lot of money on that, and then we were able to come in and raise the money to do the exhibits that are now in the Nature Center building and start on the nature playscape. And I think those are really the best things that we see developing here, and just lots more good things to happen.
For many years here at Wesselman Woods, jogging and running was permitted in the woods. The National Guard did it, people from the community did it. No one seemed to think that there was anything wrong with that. Of course, this is a nature preserve, and that is not an approved activity. So the board at the time, this was being 35 years ago, took it upon themselves to ban jogging, running in the woods, something that was very contentious at the time, even though today you might not think anything of it. At the time, I was a runner, and I was a jogger, and I was also president of the board. After seeing me at the board table, it took all the wind out of the sails of all the joggers. When I came out and said that this is something that we shouldn't do, our board has agreed on this and we stand firm, there wasn't hardly a whimper. It passed unanimously, of course, and the public just really embraced it, and now the Nature Center is tranquil and we have no more of the damage, and it's not an approved activity anymore, but it was at one time.
Well, I think one of the greatest stories about both of you is that you guys met at Wesselman Woods and you got married.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did, like I said, romance bloomed. We have girl, boy, boy, girl. They are all happily married at this time. These are all of our 9 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful.
It's a very unique place, a nice preserve in the middle of a busy city, and you don't find that very often. So it's something special to people who really care for it.
I think they should know and recall the McAllister history, that it's a mature virgin hardwood forest. And what struck me, and I always emphasize it in some of our talks, was the maximum biodiversity of so many strata, the stratification from the subsoil and all the way through the crown and canopy of the major trees and all the sub canopy forest trees and shrubs. There's just layers and layers, and everyone is a home for hundreds of species.
And I'd say how nice and accessible it is for family outings to know and appreciate nature, and for the solitude to get away within the city urban environment. It was wonderful.
When people come in, they should respect the place as it is, because it's home to animals and living things, and don't destroy it.
Oh gosh, I just wish they knew it was here. It's such a treasure, and I do a lot of tours of people moving to the community, and every time we come by the Nature Center, and they always seem very, very impressed. And it's such a treasure, and we just need to make sure that everybody knows about it.
Wow.
And I want to remember several people, most of whom I think have passed on, that were very influential and grand supporters of the Nature Center at the time. So I want to remember Lucille Pitt, Tom Westfall, Luke Anderson, Dr. Winterheimer, Louis Irwin, a full-blooded American Sioux Lakota Indian. He was our custodian. The Eichers, Doris and her husband and son, the Bucks, Richard, Helen, and son Kurt, Peggy Short, Dorothea Shalecki, Barbara Studwell, Liz Flittner, and lastly, a couple of what we call junior naturalists, Jay Bauer and Elizabeth Baranowski. they were teenagers and they assisted us at our wedding.
Yeah, they were wonderful.
Yeah, so we just have nothing but fond memories because this is
Yeah,
where
it's wonderful. Where we started.
where our seeds were
Hmm.
sown and grew and eventually blossomed in other places, and you see the results.